Hey everyone, this is Drake from Engaging Walk. Thanks for tuning in. Today our episode is going to be about, is jealousy healthy in the relationship? So it's going to be by myself today because my wife is pregnant and she's due pretty soon. So thank God for that, and we're really looking forward to that new chapter in our lives. But alright, so let's get on with the content. So is jealousy healthy in the relationship? I think there's a few ways that we can break this down to get a better understanding of what is jealousy, how does it work in a relationship, why do we feel jealous, and is it ultimately beneficial or not in a relationship. And so first we have to evaluate what is jealousy. So are we talking about jealousy in terms of your partner's success? Are we talking about jealousy in terms of sharing your partner's time? Are we talking about jealousy in terms of how your partner is and like how they interact with people? So jealousy or envy in any sort of situation is not good, but it might reveal things that are at least beneficial in terms of like getting us to a place that is more sustainable depending on what we're talking about. So that's why I think it's important to also just like break this up into different chunks. So let's first talk about jealousy of our partner's time, because I think that is going to be the number one way, or the most common way rather, in terms of like how we feel jealous in regards to our partner. This could be like, my partner spends too much time with their guitar, with their friends, or with a coworker, or what have you, and I don't like the amount of time that they're spending with those things, but I'd rather have that time spent together. So one, we have to break this down, I think, in is it realistic? So your partner is a different person than you are, but especially if you're married, then you the two become one, right? Now, if you're married and your partner spends all their time playing a video game or playing their guitar or they're doing things that are really just fulfilling to them as an individual, then I think that jealousy is justified, actually, because what you're saying is the needs of the relationship aren't being met because of these conditions that is spending too much time focusing on the self. So again, we can bring this back to, for those of you who are new to the podcast, in Engaging Walk, we have this concept about 2 cups in a bowl, right? So I have to have my cup filled and my wife has to have her cup filled. And with our 2 filled cups, we bring it to the bowl. And the bowl symbolizes the marriage, and the cups symbolize our own fulfillment. But if I'm just constantly pouring into my own cup and not bringing it back to the bowl, well, then the bowl's going to be empty. The marriage is going to be suffering, and it's not going to have as much sustenance to be able to thrive on. So all 3 elements are important, but in that sense, they become one, right? So that is a cause for, I would say, justified jealousy, in that there's another goal that is in mind, that is the relationship. So those things, the activities that we like, hanging out with other people, friends, family, those things are very important to filling up our cup. However, in excess, they can in certain areas detract from how much we're bringing to the relationship, right? So if we think about it that way, and if you and your partner sit down and say, okay, well, how much time would work for you? Like, how much is too much? I really get an enjoyment out of this, but it's not hurting the relationship by me just doing it. It's hurting it by me doing it too much. Okay, so then how much is too much? How much should I draw back? Having those conversations and having those discussions about where to draw the line in terms of how much time is being spent away from filling up the bowl and then filling up your own individual cup can really help identify, like, okay, this is how much we're going to be doing it. This is how much time I'm going to be spend towards this. And those clear lines and those clear demarcations of like, okay, this is how we're going to do it, will open up avenues in which you both have a clear understanding of the situation, right? So when you see your spouse playing a video game and you're like, okay, well, we already agreed that this is fine as long as, it's only for like a few hours a week or however much you determine it would be. Like, this is his decompression time. This is her decompression time that she needs, her time to fill up her cup. And over time, as you start getting used to those ideas of like, this is their personal time and it's not going to interfere with our time, then it goes from unhealthy to healthy, right? So is the question in this regard, is jealousy healthy? Again, it depends on the situation. It depends on what the goal is. So the initial goal was jealousy was actually healthy because we're not having enough family time and I want more family time. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have more family time. That's actually a good sign, because you're actually in trouble if the opposite is happening. If, your spouse is like, yeah, just go ahead and just do whatever you want. I don't care if you ever come home or if I ever see you again, right? So neither of those are healthy. Both ends of the extreme are not good. So drawing somewhere in the middle where, like, yeah, you have your personal time, we have our family time, I have my own personal time, that is healthy. So jealousy can be an emotional response that we're having to this situation that will draw us together. But if, again, at this point we're meeting both ends of the conversation, right? So we had a discussion that I'm going to do, 5 hours a week of painting by myself, and you said that you would be okay with that, but I'm not able to do that, or I'm only able to do like 2, and after 2 you get upset. Well, then, that sort of level of jealousy is not going to be healthy, because you're detracting away from your spouse or your spouse's ability to be able to fill up their own cup, right? They're not having that recharge time, that decompression time that they need. And this idea of like having that decompression time, that personal time, understood and valued by your spouse, will really make you both way more comfortable in that situation. So it'll really develop a lot of also appreciation for your spouse, because like, hey, you know what, they really want the best for me, because they're okay with that downtime that I have with my friends when we go play golf, or whatever that activity, that healthy activity that you like to do. Now, jealousy in terms of like sharing, so let's also dive into another common one, which is jealousy in terms of sharing affection, which, again, this is going to also depend. Are we talking about a dog? Are we talking about family? We're talking about like a good friend that's like of the same sex, then those are healthy displays of affection. Yeah, I love my dog. I kiss her. I hug her. I pick her up. My mom or my sister, my brother, I have a really good friend that I hug, and we have displays of affection. But of the opposite sex, of friends, especially in terms of like friends or coworkers and things like that, that can be really unhealthy. And your partner is certainly justified in at least bringing it up and saying like, hey, what's going on here? I'm not comfortable with it. Just from like an outside perspective, that is a healthy response to that type of relationship, because especially if they don't feel comfortable with it. And again, every situation is a little bit different, but if they are bringing that up, then, you have to at least come to an understanding that like, okay, well, they're uncomfortable with it, so let's not do that, because is ultimately the relationship that you have with your spouse more important than the relationship that you have with somebody else. So, those are conversations that you're going to want to have, and really iron those out. So, yeah, from an outside perspective, that is what it is. Like if the person is uncomfortable with it, then you would probably just want to stop doing it. So that's pretty much all I have to say about that one. And then we're going to talk a little bit more about jealousy in general. So jealousy in general, I think, as we break it up into these different categories of like, are you jealous of the person's time being spent? Are you jealous of affection? This can also be just like jealousy of the other person, which I think is really unhealthy, especially if you are talking about a spouse. So, for example, this could look something like, my spouse is really successful in like everything that they do. Like they are just like really good at their job. They're really good with the children. They're really good with everything that they manage. And, I have my own shortcomings that make me feel envious of my spouse. I think that could lead to a lot of things that are really not good because, again, the two become in marriage, and specifically we're talking about marriage here, but if this is happening in the dating, then there's no reason to believe that it wouldn't happen in marriage. If this is happening in the marriage, that like you're looking at your spouse and you have envy of their accomplishments, their goals, their drivenness, that is the totally wrong response to have when your spouse is really achieving and doing great things. One, you want to be happy for them because their successes are your successes, right? So they're bringing you along for the ride, ideally. If they're not, then you want to talk about that of like, hey, how, you've been really crushing it. I feel like I haven't really been crushing it. Like, how do you think that I can improve? And what are the things that you think that I can do to really get myself going forward, Or, hey, you have like I've noticed that you're really great at accomplishing your goals. Can you help me? Like, what do you think that I can do to help accomplish my goals? And your partner might be like, okay, well, what are your goals? And then you sit down and you talk about them together, but at least have that conversation if you feel like, they're not like bringing you along. But in most cases, you're going to be brought along and you're going to be sharing in those successes. And as long as you're feeling like happy for the other person and celebrating their successes, then you're along for the ride, and then you can always look at what your partner does that is successful and good, and then learn from it. So, that is the whole reason like why you kind of like want to have somebody fill in those gaps that you might not have. So, for example, if you're like really great like vision person, like, yeah, I come up with really great ideas, but I have a really hard time bringing them to be. Like, I need somebody that's more detail oriented person to really help me get closer to my dreams, and we work together to to make them happen. If you have somebody that is doing that, then you can look to their example as motivation and inspiration, as opposed to jealousy and envy. So though those categories of jealousy, again, jealousy is not really bad in and of itself. It's more of like, what is the goal of the jealous feeling that we're having? Because it's a feeling. It's an emotional response to something that we feel like needs to be ours but isn't. So in the first example of time, well, the time that we're not spending together is not good, and I want to have more time. Okay, again, go back to that example of, one end of the extreme. I want to spend all of our time together. Not realistic, not doable, right? Not feasible. The other end of the extreme is, I don't care what you do. I never care if I see you. Go ahead and go do whatever you want to do. Not a relationship, right? Somewhere in the middle. So that feeling of jealousy can draw us, again, closer to an area in which we're both comfortable sharing our time, having both of our cups filled, and bringing that cup to the bowl of the marriage or the relationship and making sure that that is filled as well. Jealousy in terms of affection, that is more of an issue of boundaries. Okay, so where are we okay putting our affection? we're okay with affection towards each other, affection towards our pets, family, certain friends, and then that's where you have to draw a very clear demarcation of a line and boundaries of saying, like, these friends is okay. This is what I would prefer to see in terms of like displays of affection, and then go from there. But obviously, you want to have that conversation about like where those boundaries are. And then third, which is envy or jealousy of your partner of themselves for their achievements. And then that, again, you want to have more of a conversation about like, is your feeling of envy and jealousy because of like your partner themselves or because that you're not achieving your end? So you can have your partner help you fill in those gaps, but being jealous in and of themselves for their accomplishments is not healthy because, again, you're both you're both along for the ride, and celebrating those successes instead of being envious will go a lot further than, again, just by just being envious. But you can use those differences in terms of like how you accomplish goals and how effective you are to propel yourselves and to make the relationship more more successful in terms of like what you're able to accomplish, how you feel about it, etc. All right, so for today we're going to wrap this up for is jealousy healthy in the relationship? If I missed anything, or if you had any other points that you would like to bring out, please let us know in the comments. And we want to thank you guys for tuning into Engaging Walk. It's been really great to see the podcast grow and have a lot more people tuning in every week. And our schedule has been a little bit busy, so we want to make more and more videos and interact with you guys more and more often. So if you see some shorts or if you see some videos that we've been posting on YouTube, go check those out. You can find us at Engaging Walk, or if you just type in Engaging Walk Podcast, you should be able to find us on YouTube if you haven't already. We're also on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So please share with the podcast with anybody that you think that would enjoy the content or could use some dating, marriage, conversation topics. Okay, so with that, my name is Drake and I'm signing out. I'll see you guys on Friday. We'll be having another episode and we'll be talking about, this time we're going to be talking about prenuptial agreements. So definitely ties in with the dating series, but we're going to be wrapping this up with prenuptial agreements. All right, we'll see you guys then. Have a great day, and don't work too hard during the work week, you guys.